Thank you so much for watching the Denver Film Festival Animated Shorts program. My name is Landon Zackheim. I am the short film curator for the film festival, and I am here with some of the filmmakers from the program you just saw. So I'll call everybody out. If you could just quickly introduce yourself, the movie you worked on, and your role on that film. Bernardo.
My name is Bernardo. I wrote and directed Hudson Geese, the animated movie.
Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine Lepage. I'm director of The Great Malaise, and I also animated a part of it, and I wrote it.
And Josephine.
Hi, so I'm a British writer-director. I directed The Fabric of You, and I also animated it. And did a whole lot of other stuff with it as well.
Excellent, thank you. And now we'll go back the other way, starting with you, Josephine. Just briefly, everybody tell us, what was the inspiration behind the films we just watched?
Yeah, so The Fabric of You, I initially wrote it because I really wanted to challenge some of the expectations around stop motion. I think sometimes it's often a medium associated with like children's content. So I kind of wanted to sort of play on the expectations of what that is. And also I was just really heavily influenced by some American graphic novelists like Art Spiegelman, just the sort of like stylistic approach of the film, and also like how you can use sort of these anthropomorphic characters to portray different like adult themes within your shorts. So yeah, I guess that was the main inspiration for the short.
And Catherine?
It started like more than 10 years ago. I wrote an illustrated book about a depression that I experienced myself. And then I made a few years later, I made another book about anxiety. And then a third book, and then I said, why not make a film with these books, with the visual content of the books? And my goal was just to make something new with these images, but I think the subject is more relevant than ever before. The topic of anxiety and performance and trying to always have success in everything. I think it's a problem in today's society, and that's why I wanted to make the film.
And Bernardo.
People have seen they just watched the movies, right? I can talk.
Yes, everybody has just seen the film. So pretend that you're on stage right after the screening.
So yeah, I live now in Brooklyn near the water, and I always see the Canadian geese on their migration, and so I see them every year. And then a couple of years ago, there was a movie that came out called Sully, about Sully Sullenberger, the pilot who landed on the Hudson. And I watched the movie, and I also read the novelization of the movie, and I was struck by the phrase that, he crashed into a flock of geese, and I think that stayed with me, just thinking about those geese. So I was like, I want to do a movie from their point of view, and I want to do something about how we have changed the world and how the world has reacted to it, and how we deal with other life on the planet.
Excellent, thank you. And this next question is also for all of you. Anybody can jump in, but you'll all have to answer it. The process of all of you, essentially, you're doing a lot of work alone, I'd imagine, while making these movies, and you're directing, in many cases, animating yourself, and also writing this work. Can each of you discuss sort of that process and how it changes from sort of the initial idea in your head, what you're to how you essentially shape and come up with your script, and how that changes as you're constructing it and then essentially editing what we end up seeing on the screen just now?
I can start. I worked with a team, so I was really lucky. My film was produced by the National Film Board of Canada, and they hired an animator to work with me because I have no background in animation. I'm an illustrator. So we just split the work. I gave her the most difficult stuff to animate, and I kept the simple ones for me. And it was great because she taught me a lot of things, and just looking at her, how she works, that was great. Her name is Agathe Brébouré. She's a really good animator. And the film, the way I wrote it was really flexible. So I moved the things around several times before finding the right pacing. And yeah, we all had the pieces, but the most trickiest part was to put them in the good order. So I did that alone, but mostly alone, and with the editor as well. And yeah, I think, does it answer your question?
It does, but I'm wondering if you could talk about like when you were sort of ordering that, sort of how did you sort of follow, like what were your guiding principles there, or how did you follow your instincts when you were kind of deciding what would make it in and in what order?
Yeah, it's a really instinctive process, and it's hard. I have to try so many things, and I wrote the voiceover. I wrote it over and over again, and I would record myself on my iPhone just to try on a timeline how how I can move the things around. And it was really like I had to try and try again and move things around. There's no recipe. I would have to start all over again if I would want to make another film in the same look and feel.
Who wants to take it next?
Josephine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah, I think my film was sort of a similar process. It got funded by the Scottish Film Talent Network. So we had, so it was actually the first funded film I did, so it was a bit of a baptism by fire for me in terms of like what is an animatic and learning how to use that, and also, yeah, working with a bigger team, because prior to that I had just graduated art school. So I actually studied painting and printmaking. So I kind of come from a fine art background. So I think when it comes to the sort of technical animation stuff, I'm not super confident in that. So the film, The Fabric of You, was very much, yeah, a real learning experience for me. So I sort of learned a lot about yeah, like rigging and like 24, like trying to animate 24 frames a second. And I think as well, just because the budget we were working with was quite small for what we were trying to achieve as well. I think I would have loved to get an animator on board, but I had animated like previous shorts during my degree, but not to the kind of the standard that I wanted it. So, but in the end, I did end up animating all the shots in The Fabric of You. I think going forward, like I know that people can do it better than me, so it's kind of like if the budget allows, like I always obviously want to get someone to do it, and I think I can do like sculpt and do these sort of roles, but I'm always looking to work with like people, yeah, like the talent. And yeah, I'm kind of working on some stop motion projects at the moment, and there's one which is a kind of a similar budget to The Fabric of You, which I think I'll be predominantly animating again as well. But then I'm also pitching for a larger project, so hopefully I'll be able to get a better animator to do that. Yeah, does that kind of answer your question?
Oh yeah, but I am also curious about your writing process specifically, sort of how, you know, knowing that you are going to be animating, how does that affect sort of what you're writing on the page and like how you're shaping your story?
Yeah, so I think animation is pretty unique in the sense that like I feel like it just doesn't have any boundaries, and I think usually a lot of the challenge making these films, yeah, is just kind of like, oh god, how do we do that? So I think when I write the script, I really don't. I try not to have any restrictions. I try, because I know how like open animation is and how you can just achieve anything that you want to. I think if you really put your mind to it and have a very good producing team, So yeah, so I think so I do the writing myself, and again, like I didn't study script writing. I come from a fine art background, so with the Fabric of You, we did have that the mentorship through that scheme, which was really helpful. So I worked with a script editor for that, and that was the sort of first introduction really to kind of like script writing and trying to like achieve what you're trying to like setting out to achieve, and like these like the idea of like emotional beats, and yeah, like this whole sort of format of it was really something new to me, because I had just kind of written stories but not had any formal training in that at art school. So but I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the more craft element, because when I did fine art, it was very much like conceptual, and whereas I actually quite enjoyed the sort of rules script writing has a little bit, like what makes a good script and what doesn't. So off the back of the Fabric of You, I tried to do a lot of research and read up a lot about script writing as well, but also not getting too pinned down to really following a formula, but also just having those tools with you if you get stuck or if you want them. So that's how I sort of try to approach script writing, kind of like learn it, throw out the window, and then come back to it if you need some help.
Sure, of course. And finally, Bernardo.
I wrote this myself. I also worked with a bigger team, and it was also funded. I'm in the United States where there is no funding for the arts, so I got my money from an entertainment corporation. We did it for FX, the TV channel, for their series Cake. And usually the way I write things, once I have an idea and I know what the idea is, and I know what the feeling is, I will just sort of think about it for a really long time. And then when I sit down to write, I'm like, okay, now it all comes out, and it should all be one long thing, and it all fits together nicely. And I have sort of an editor's brain about it, where I am writing voiceover, knowing that for Hudson Geese, I did the voiceover myself, and knowing the rhythm that I'm going to say things at, and knowing how it's going to cut and how those sequences will come together. I'm oftentimes writing in sound effects into the document if it helps with the rhythm. For this movie, originally, I think it was going to be much more focused on climate change, because I was doing a lot of research and thinking a lot about the way that climate change was affecting the geese's the geese migration. And I was like reading a lot about that. And then again, just when I sat down to write it, that didn't really make it in. And then I wrote about his brother, and then that ended up turning into his wife, and then focusing more on that and that aspect of the relationship between these two geese instead of the sort of macro of it. And then this was also my first time where I was, sending it to FX for like notes on the script and things like that. And they had great notes where I would be frustrated because I was like, fuck, this actually, oops, sorry, I don't know if I can curse, but I was like, oh, this actually does make it better. I was like, now I have to go back and change things, because this actually was a really good note. And yes, this section was repetitive or whatever it is. It was, and then I worked with an animation studio, Floyd County in Atlanta. So they would animate everything, send it back to me, and I would redesign things, or I would re-edit them and retime them so that they fit better with the timing of the voiceover.
Josephine, can you speak to, your film has such a great and steady tone and atmosphere, and I'm wondering if you could speak to some of the sound design and sort of your post-production elements, and the recording of the voiceover as well, or of the actors as well, because I think that's like it's creating a very interesting soundscape to accompany the visual elements of it. Can you sort of speak to the construction of that?
Yeah, I guess I had a very like vivid idea of like what I wanted to achieve and the tone. I took a lot of inspiration like stylistically from, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but like Will Eisner, like the graphic novelist who did
Will Eisner, yeah.
Yeah, A Contract with God, and he like the sort of these incredibly beautifully illustrated like areas of the Bronx, and the family, like these different families living in those areas, and the sort of different like levels and sort of rubbish, the sort of claustrophobicness of like living on top of each other. So that was a really key influence in designing the film. I also had a really great production designer called Tom Palmer, who I actually went to university with as well, and he is just like this amazingly committed, creative, adaptive production designer. So I think initially I wrote the script and we had like 2 other extra scenes, and then we ended up like condensing it and just having it into this like bed sit in the apartment. And then he did research about like what the apartment layout would be, because it was kind of like 1950s inspired. So that was really, he was just great. And I'm working on him in my next projects just because he's very like adaptive production designer. And yeah, I lit the film as well. So I sort of did all the DOP stuff as like animators tend to do in their shorts, which I really enjoy because I also have a bit of a photography background. So I really enjoyed creating that. And I worked quite hard to create quite like a cinematic feel in the film, because the film is kind of split between his reality, which is when it's really like dark at nighttime, and then his memories, which are kind of lit in the daytime and a lot brighter. So I really wanted there to be a contrast, like in the weather, but also in the lighting. So that was a very distinctive choice. And the producer I had on the film as well, he works for an animation company called a VFX company called and CGI company called Access Animation in Scotland. So he also, yes, I think with animation you do get a lot of decisions, you know, like how do we want to do rain, for example, and I know shorts that have like literally animated like raindrops on that, but I think time wise we were kind of we sort of like got in-kind support from that production company to do the VFX on the short, which was really great. Like they did some like puddle shots and like some water shots, and they were just like amazing. Like as someone who's never worked with VFX artists before, you're just like, you tell them like I want steam or like I want a puddle, and they just like make this insane like super realistic puddle, and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. So that was really exciting as well. And yeah, I'm not really sure what else to. Oh, and the recording. Yeah, we went to London to record the voiceovers, and that was a really fun experience as well. Again, a baptism of fire experience for me, because I've worked with that kind of actors, but we had Ian Glenn from like Game of Thrones do one of the characters. So I hadn't like worked with it was one of those situations where you're like, I've got to pretend like I know what I'm doing, and then secretly inside you're screaming. But it was a great experience, and they're just absolutely lovely, lovely guys to work with, like really, really professional and put you at ease. And it was just a really great learning experience, I think. So yeah.
So Catherine, you mentioned that this was kind of the latest in a series of adaptations where you're exploring this subject in different formats. Can you discuss sort of what was it you felt like you could change or adapt with film itself to sort of iterate on the previous versions of what you were trying to say?
For me, it was just a way to move to film. I just wanted to try animation, and I thought it would be simple to start from something I already had, to start from a subject I know. And it was a mistake, because it was not simple at all to adapt. And I didn't want to have like the book is now a film. I wanted the film to be something new, something different that holds by itself. So, but I didn't overthink about it. It was just like, hey, I want to make a film, and I contacted the NFB, and they knew the book. Maybe I should say though, the first book about depression, when it came out, I was contacted by someone at the NFB, and it was like 12 years ago, I think. And he thought that the book would make a great short film. So I think that was the little seed that grew. The project never happened back then, but I think the idea stayed there and never left me.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the good answer.
It's nice to have these companion pieces sort of exploring the same subject in different mediums too, I think. Finally, this will be our last question, is Bernardo, can you talk about doing the voiceover yourself? kind of what are some of the sort of challenges or pitfalls to avoid? Like, how did you end up making films where you're your own kind of actor or voiceover artist as well? And sort of what are some of the joys and challenges of that?
Yeah, I think the worst thing about it is just having to hear my voice played back, especially like in film festival screenings where I'm like, I don't want to listen to this ever. And I don't think I have a very nice sounding voice, but I the way I write is very much the way I talk also. And I think it works hand in hand with that. Oftentimes when I'm directing people to do voiceover and it's something I've written, I'm like, just drop out the last syllables of every word. So just like de-emphasize everything you're saying as though it doesn't really matter. And I think what I like about it is having the control of the tone, because the things I write sometimes can be maybe a little bit too fantastical or a little bit too melancholy or a little bit too silly or whatever. And I know how to deliver it in a way where I will undercut the seriousness of it with some jokes, and I will undercut the silliness of it with some gravity to it. And I think that finding that balance where it's a little bit of a matter-of-factly monotone, but it actually also has personality to the voice. Not to say that other people can't do it. Other people can definitely do it better. I'm just better at directing myself than I am at directing other people to do that. But this movie is good because this is a goose, and geese probably sound a lot like me. But when I write for other characters that are women or older people, then I have to cast other people, and it's never as good.
On that note, I would like to thank all of our filmmakers for being here today. Thank you for giving us your time, sharing your work with the Denver Film Festival. Thank you to the Denver Film Festival audience for checking out Shorts Program 3, our animated shorts program. We've got several other entirely different and unique shorts programs, so I hope you'll check those out before the end of the festival. And thank you all again for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye. Yeah, I think we got what we needed. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for doing this. Yeah, nice to meet you, Catherine and Josephine. Bernardo, always nice to see your face.
Yes, it's nice to see you. Halloween, October, spooky month. Happy Octoberland. Yeah, I know it's a big month for you.
I'm not doing my haunted houses. I'm very sad.
No. Yeah.
There's one drive-through one I think we're gonna go to.
Really?
Yeah, I can't imagine it'll be good.
No one on this chat needs to be here anymore. If you guys want to stay, it's fine. But if you're doing another any sort of virtual escape room type thing, get me back in there.
Oh yeah, Bernardo and I sometimes do escape together. But bye.
Bye.
Just like back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.